Hi everyone, this is Sam from Astrology. We're going to talk about the solar eclipse in Aries, which is coming up on the 20th of April, 20th of the 4th. And it's going to be significant, especially for those who are born close to an eclipse, because people born close to eclipse cycles usually become extremely sensitive to them. And of course, the house position of where it falls in is very important to pay attention to, but I don't think I'm going to go through that. It's been interesting since I've had a look at what's going on in the media in regards to this, because it was interesting what comes up in these old mundane astrology books, which I'll talk about a little bit in a sec. And I want to do this from a point of view. We'll talk a little bit generally about the solar eclipses in Aries, but also because a lot of my audience is practitioners or interested in health. So we'll always look at the health perspective as well, because eclipse times are critical like this, especially when it comes to planning and understanding. If we've got certain health conditions, things can get triggered. So we'll talk a little bit about those. But clearly, this is an eclipse in Aries, so it's a fiery one, and it's in the cardinal mode, so it's cardinal fire, which is an initiating energy. And it's the ancients would say that when we see eclipse in our location, then a visible location, then it usually has a very profound effect on the nation and on the people, and on certain events that can get triggered at this time. But so eclipses in this sign are really dynamic and have strong and fast effects, because we're talking fire, we're talking the fire element. It's initiating, so it can come in very quick. So the energy rises and dissipates suddenly. There can be power surges, power outages, in all, and especially to do with energy, electricity. There can be people speeding on the roads. I've noticed a lot of people are driving like crazy. Aries is a sign, the daredevil sign. It likes to go quick, likes to go fast, likes to take risks. So there can be, people can get more passionate. There can be stronger tempers in people. There can be military action. It can be the initiation of war and war tactics, and of course fires. But usually, sometimes with eclipses, we'll feel them sometimes 3 to 6 months before, but usually 3 to 6 months after. It's sometimes, and events can happen exactly around the time, which is one I'll talk about in a sec, but they can do. So it all plays out differently for people, but the energies are usually pretty strong for the next 6 months coming up. So Aries is like cayenne pepper. It's very hot. It's hot and stimulating. So this sign usually inspires action, discovery, the aggression impulse, and like I said, war. Leaders may rise and fall. The eclipses can herald great discoveries in exploration, science, and medicine. And leaders and athletes, new talent idols, may suddenly rise or fall as well. But this is a time for, it's a feisty eclipse, so it's important to proceed with a little bit of caution. When you're feeling a little bit rash, if you're feeling a little bit temperamental, you just got to monitor the fire, monitor the heat, because, yeah, it's incredible. So certain cautions around this we need to pay attention to. So check for fire hazards. It's important. This eclipse is prone to divorces and quitting jobs, because there's always a reaction area with the sign, right? So it's going to affect Libra. Generally rules relationships, and when it hits Aries, there can be that reflex zone, that reflex action that can trigger issues within relationship. It also moves. You want to keep in mind your temper, like I said before, but also firearms as well. Be very careful with firearms, and avoid speeding, and avoid provoking arguments, and definitely don't drink and drive, because this can be really, really dangerous. at this time. So it's a hot and dry eclipse, and it coincides with droughts and sparse vegetation. So over the next 6 months or so, we'll probably see this. It could be a very hot summer. I'm down in the south in Australia here, so we're coming into winter, but up north, and there already has been a little bit of action there. Let's talk about this, because I'll share my screen, because there's something that came up and I was interested, because I have all these really old mundane astrology books, and there was a incident that actually happened, and I instantly thought of this this book when I was reading it, because it's incredible. There's a book that's in Mundane Astrology. So when it's 29 degrees, right, the ancients would provide an actual sign into 30 degrees and divide it by 3, so 10 degrees of each sign, and the later 30 degrees sign would be the last decan. And in this particular book, when the eclipse falls into the third decan in at 29 degrees Aries, so to speak, it's in the third decadence. So what can happen is there can be grief, sadness to mortals, death of some great women, but also destruction of cattle. And I was just having a look just before I started doing this, that I saw that, wow, I just had a quick look at the news, and I thought, wow, something's got to be happening with the cattle, right, coming up. And there's this horrific explosion and fire killing 18,000 cattle in Texas. So you can't get more Aryan than that. Cardinal fire, explosive energy, and then harming the cattle, which is really horrific, actually. It's really sad, because there's a lot of, I think we're going to have, in the long term, over this next 6 months, we're going to have very big problems with cattle and the meat industry, I think, in general, because Aries rules Mars, and Mars rules the butchers, meat trade. So yeah, I just found this very, very interesting that this came up right at this time when I thought, oh, I'm just going to do a little bit of a spin on this eclipse in Aries. And so just getting back to the medical effects of this eclipse, right? Because we've got to think planetary activity deeply affects our bodies. And so what do we have here? We've got people who've had strokes. You need to be careful. And there's a lot of strokes going on. I don't really need to state the reason why that's going on, but it's interesting. So you need to be careful and really cultivate. If your temper is getting out of control, just make sure you process the emotion as authentically as you can, and through the body, through treatments, primal therapy, or even body work such as massage, acupuncture, and getting the energy out, getting bag work. Eclipses in Aries can bring out very strong repressed masculine energy that people haven't been initiating and putting into good use. So this is a good time that things can draw out this repressed energy, particularly in men now that we've been castrated. So it's good to get it out. High blood pressure, you need to be careful. Migraine, headaches, glaucoma, brain issues, mania, and brain-related mental illness. Now, we've got to understand too, around this total eclipse time as well, I've done a lot of cell salts talks, so we're going to be burning through, even at a greater rate, that potassium phosphate, kali phosphate tissue salt. So if people are feeling really mentally out of whack, really dose up on this tissue salt. Particularly those who suffer bipolar and ADHD, these kind of things will get triggered. Also the adrenal glands, so we can get in fight or flight mode. And now testosterone levels can really fluctuate at this time as well. They either increase or possibly decrease, depending on how you look after yourself and how you cultivate the body. We can have extreme highs and lows experiences with our energies. This eclipse can definitely invoke heat and fevers. And also, it can also stimulate hemorrhaging, because remember, Mars Aries rules the blood as well. And so you've got to be very careful around electional surgery. I mean, if you have to have emergency surgery, that's kind of different. But if there's something you need operated on, particularly in the head, which because Aries rules the head, then for electional astrology, you've got a choice. Don't do it in this time, and particularly especially when the eclipse is in between waves. So when it starts at the 20th of April, and then 2 weeks later, it's in the lunar sign of Scorpio. So we just want to, in that 2-week kind of frame, you just want to avoid surgeries. So you got to be cautious with blood thinners at this time as well. So it's a very dry, hot eclipse. Pregnant women should avoid heat and excessive activity close to this eclipse as well. And so the moods and the brain chemistry can be deeply affected here and sensitized. So, and the eyes can become extremely sensitive to light as well, because Aries has a function of connecting with the eyes as well. So those suffer from glaucoma and pressure on the eyes that can increase. So a good time to nourish yin fluids, keep up with the water. And also, you've got to bear in mind, on a deeper astrological note, just pay attention to what's house this eclipse is falling in for you. I mean, mine's fallen in the 12th house, which is, wow. I mean, if I had some really amazing kind of dream life, it's really, 12th house rules house of sleep. It's a house of confinement. It's an interesting how it's going to affect us all. But I just wanted to share a little bit about this eclipse. And it's also from Bernadette Brady's book on another point. This eclipse is going to bring up some deep sexual passions that can really come up, because Aries is that sign of sexuality as well. So those of us, we may really be experiencing like some real passion within the body, really wanted to connect, make body contact with others, and have some deeper sexual experiences at this time. So this is another thing, because very deep passion can really get evoked from this, because Aries is the masculine sign. It is the sign of the libido function, and that could all really really pick up for us at this time. It's a great time for initiating projects, because that cardinal energy is all about that, really starting something, getting excited, because Aries is a very excitable sign. Yeah, I want to do this, I want to pursue this, like the keywords are I want. So these are just a few things to consider. And in a few weeks, we'll get touch base again, and we'll get into the lunar eclipse in the old Scorpion energy. Thanks for listening, guys.